Hi, everyone. I'm Lori McInerney. I am the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing here at Tacton. Thank you all for joining, and I know several others will be rolling in, but we'll get started. Very excited to have our webinar today, all about a year in review, a look back on 2024 in the manufacturing industry. So you will hear about key trends within the industry, the rise of the digital buyer. The buyer and buyer engagement has really changed, with over 80% of the buying process now completely, almost done before the customer ever engages with a vendor. Manufacturers really need to be able to deliver seamless, buyer-focused experience to stay relevant. And meeting these expectations requires the right tools, the right partners, the right technology, insights, and strategy. So we're going to dig into this. We're also going to dig into how we've aligned our product roadmap in 2024 to make sure our product and our solutions are in line with this, and that we, arm our customers and the manufacturers. We prepare them to be able to offer the best solutions, product, and experiences for their customers. And then we'll we'll talk about, our biggest releases in 24, and then we'll end into a sneak peek into the roadmap in 2025. All right, I'm excited to kick this off and introduce our two speakers. We've got Jeff Summers, our Chief Commercial Officer, and we have Jesper Alfredsson, our Chief Product Officer. Jeff, I'll let you take it from here.
Excellent. Thanks, Lori. Well, listen, I really want to thank everybody for taking some time here. We're coming into the holiday season. I know everybody's got probably a whole bunch of stuff that they're trying to get done at work before we all kind of disappear for the holidays. You get all the stresses of Christmas shopping and all those kinds of things. So I just want to say thank you for taking kind of your valuable time to spend it with us here today. What's interesting here is that let's see here. Yeah. What's interesting about this, and what I'm going to do in my part of the presentation here is actually take you through a set of trends that we identified working with McKinsey and a couple of other external firms. But what really kind of spurred our work around these trends is that what we noticed at the end of last year was that the conversation that we were having with our customers was fundamentally changing. If you look at Tacton, we are clearly a CPQ platform. That's the category, if you will, that Gartner would put us in. But what we realized at the end of last year was the conversation with the sales leaders and the product leaders within our customers was changing. Everybody was still very concerned about kind of the efficiency of the CPQ process. But what started to seep into that conversation much more prominently was changing the experience of that manufacturer's buyers. And there were a bunch of things that were actually driving that. But what you'll see here as I walk through this, we have identified these 5 key trends, and we have really built the company, not just our product roadmap, but our company around these concepts. And you see it kind of summarized best here on the left-hand side. We really view ourselves today and going forward as the platform for driving buyer engagement, specifically within complex manufacturing, meaning in the configure to order space. So we've got a nice combination, I think, of existing customers on this webinar today, and then we've also got a number of folks that we haven't worked with in the past. So I wanted to do a little bit of a level set there in terms of who Tacton was. Obviously, we've been in this space for a very, very long time, but more importantly, during that time, we've really listened to our customers and developed some of the best technology in the marketplace. One of the things, obviously, that we're most proud of is where we sit in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CPQ platforms. As of last year, we were the furthest up and to the right, which is what you're constantly trying to strive for from a Gartner standpoint. Very proud of that. But what's really interesting is if you rewind the tape and look at the last 4 or 5 years, you'll see, we've always been, considered a visionary. But each year we've made kind of a significant jump in the Magic Quadrant, and we attribute that to our customers. We've been privileged over that 25-year period to work with some of the most innovative, complex manufacturers literally in the world. We're a global company. And by listening to that customer set, it's clearly shaped our product over that time frame. And as we look out in the future in terms of these trends that I'm about to highlight, we're going to continue to listen and adapt as we go forward. So anyway, something we're very, very proud of, and it's all because of a lot of the people on this call, to be quite honest. Okay. So let's talk about these trends. Like I say, we worked with McKinsey and a couple of other external firms. And what the purpose of that was really to take a look at not just what are the macro trends in manufacturing, but essentially how have go-to-market strategies changed for complex manufacturers since the pandemic. And we picked that point in time primarily because, B2B enterprise buying processes changed radically from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And we wanted to understand specifically what was the impact on complex manufacturing. So we did this work and we identified 5 core trends, if you will, as it relates specifically to go-to-market strategies. So the first one really kind of focused on the buyer. And hopefully what you'll see in this entire presentation is we've really focused our attention on your customers, right? Your buyers. And so the first thing that we know is the buyer themselves and the associated buying process has changed pretty radically since the pandemic. We know that going into next year, the vast majority of people in the workplace are going to be digital natives, which means they've never known the world without the internet. They've never known the world without a smartphone, and they've never known the world without the ability to actually buy things digitally. And that personal experience for these buyers has radically changed as they've moved into these corporate procurement and buyer types of positions. It's radically changed the way they think about interacting with you, the supplier or the manufacturer. Okay. By virtue of that, what we see today is that about 80% of the buying process occurs without any direct interaction with the vendor. What's interesting about that stat is you go back 3 years ago, it was 67% of the buying process occurred without the vendor. And so what's happened since the pandemic is that it's actually accelerated since that time. And then what's really interesting is, and you kind of have to take this with a grain of salt, but if you pull some of these buyers aside and say, hey, if you could do this whole thing without interacting with a salesperson, would you do it? And about half of them say, yeah, I'd really prefer that. Now, as a practical matter, that's not really feasible within complex manufacturing, at least today. But it tells you something very interesting about the mindset of that buyer as they start to engage with you as a company. Now, these stats are from Gartner, and again, it's focused on enterprise B2B and manufacturing. What's really interesting is Accenture did a study earlier, actually started middle of last year, and they continued through the first part of this year, called the consumerization of manufacturing. And essentially, they confirmed all of these things. And we don't have time to kind of go through the details of this particular study. If you'd like a copy of it, just email us, and we can probably track that down for you. But basically, what it said was early in the buying process, what the customer's looking for is convenience, so it's access to information. As they progress, though, very quickly it flips to how reliable is this information, right? How credible is this information? And so having that kind of buyer mindset in mind as they go through this process is critically important for manufacturers going forward. Okay, now the second one of these has to do with really differentiation strategies post-pandemic. And I think we all know, and this is very, very basic, we all know that as you introduce a new product, over time, that product becomes more commoditized because your competitors come out with similar products. There are alternatives that enter the marketplace. And what that says is, in parallel with that commoditization, it's getting harder and harder to differentiate. That's really the definition of commoditization. And so since the pandemic, what we've seen is a pretty radical shift in these differentiation strategies. The first one is that, I think all of us have been talking about solution selling for a while, right? So rather than selling just point products, we're going to approach that customer or that buyer and present a solution. What's interesting about these solutions today is they're now being wrapped with a set of managed services. And these solutions are being offered in more of a subscription kind of model. So the example we always use here is Rosenbauer is one of our customers. In Germany, they make firefighting equipment. You go back a couple of years ago and, the conversation was fairly straightforward. It was, for a particular town or municipality, the question was, how many trucks would you like? And what are some of the features of those trucks, fire trucks, that you'd like to have? Now they have a very different conversation. They sit down with that buyer or set of buyers, and they ask questions about the types of fires that they have in that area. How many are commercial? How many are residential? What's the geographic layout of the area? Where are the primary centers of human activity? Things like hospitals and schools, and churches, and those types of things. Based on, literally a dozen or so outcome-based questions that they ask, they then come back with a proposal that includes, here's how many fire trucks you need. This is the configuration of those fire trucks. Here's all the supplemental equipment that you should have to go with it. And oh, by the way, we will provide all of the fleet management services around this entire package. And literally refer to this now as firefighting as a service. So now if you think about that, that's kind of a clever little example. But if you think about the conversation they're trying to have their salespeople have with that buyer, it is radically different than what it was, even 2 years ago. So you've got to be able to enable that type of conversation. The other strategy that we're seeing too is, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, our customers are getting much more focused on the buyer and their actual experience with them during that buying process, and using that experience as one of the ways that they differentiate. The old adage was, you do business with us because we're just easier to do business with than anybody else. Again, it's not so much about convenience and ease, although those are critical. Those are really table stakes. What it's about is creating this consultative conversation, two-way conversation, where we're actually engaging the buyer in a meaningful way. Okay? The third trend is, now you think about what we just talked about there. We're trying to drive a much more, rich, engaging, consultative conversation, right? And, for a while, we as a company we've talked about this idea of guided selling. And so helping that seller, helping them actually have the conversation with the buyer in a much more meaningful and rich way. One of the big things that we identified, like say towards the end of last year, was our customers were now thinking about this in terms of guided buying. In other words, how can we provide that same type of, consultative guidance directly to the buyer rather than simply through a salesperson? Again, we don't see the salesperson ever really going away in this world. However, your ability to provide that guidance in a digital format is critically important. Now, if you think about that for a second, one of the things that makes this harder, particularly in the manufacturing space, is that we continue to see a lot of turnover within manufacturing companies. We know today, and this number will kind of vary a little bit depending on where you are in the world, but it hovers around 40% turnover on an annual basis for manufacturers. So if you think about this for a second, how do I kind of codify and preserve that collective genius that exists within your company, and make it available in a digital format, despite the fact that 4 out of 10 people every year are leaving? Okay, so this idea of addressing this brain drain is critically important. A lot of the customers that we're talking to are anticipating that their entire sales force is going to turn over in the next 5 years, 100% turnover in the next 5 years. And so this is becoming, a frontline issue, if you will, for every go-to-market executive within complex manufacturing. And then finally, if you think about, we've talked a lot over the years about speed to market, right? We need to bring new products to market, new solutions to market. We need to do that faster. One of the things that is now kind of equally important is this idea of speed to sales, right? And we kind of combine those two things, speed to market and speed to sales, into what we call go-to-market agility. And it's really about, number one, being able to make better decisions, you as the manufacturer, better decisions about your products, about your marketing, about your suppliers, based on real-time data that you are getting from all of these buyer interactions that are occurring for most of you 7/24 by 365. And then from a channel standpoint or sales function standpoint, we need to enable those folks faster. We need to get them the information and the expertise, faster than we've done in the past. But more importantly, we need to make sure that that channel is adopting this new way of selling, this new kind of conversation that we're trying to drive with that new type of buyer. Okay? But it's this concept, we wrap this whole thing together when we refer to it as go-to-market agility. Okay? So it's really, this is kind of a gross oversimplification, but these are the kind of the 5 major trends that we identified in this study that we did earlier this year. And we think it's really the combination of these things that are causing specifically the go-to-market leaders within manufacturers to rethink their sales motion across all of their channels. And so today it's much more talking about how do we drive real sales transformation with a Tacton platform that drives this new type of conversation. Okay, so like I say, we've taken these trends and we're really kind of restructuring the company around these concepts, and it's also driving what we're doing from a product standpoint. And we refer to this whole thing as differentiated buyer engagement. At the end of the day, what Tacton is trying to enable for you as a manufacturer is to drive a much more differentiated engagement with that buyer. Okay? Now, how do we do that? So if you look at, kind of from a design standpoint, you think about how we start thinking about how we're going to build out the CPQ platform. Kind of the first concept here is that we need to take that best, whether you call it a field engineer, solution consultant, sales engineer, whoever that guru is, that subject matter expert that was fantastic with customers because they knew the products cold, they knew different applications of those products better than anybody else, they could tell customer stories, all those things. But we want to take that individual and digitize them. Okay. In order to do that, the first thing you focus on is this idea of guided product selection. That solution consultant can help guide the customer towards a set of solutions that make most sense, based on the business outcomes they're trying to drive. And then once we've done that, we can now start to drive the configuration of the solution. But again, rather than just doing it based on product features and options, we can do it based on business outcomes that we're trying to drive. Second key piece of that is the ability to also configure a set of services to go along with that set of products or that system that provides a broader and quite frankly, more valuable solution to the buyer. Then from a pricing standpoint, we need to make sure that we're very consistent from one customer to the next, from one buyer to the next, but that we're also optimizing that pricing based on the context of that selling situation. And doing that, increasingly better over time. Then the third piece of this is that great solution consultant, helps the customer visualize what this solution is going to look like as they make different trade-offs during the configuration process. And then finally, almost regardless of what segment of manufacturing you're focused on, I think we're all dealing with a regulatory environment, a compliance environment that is more severe than I think we've ever seen before. And we suspect that that's going to continue. And so that great solution consultant is very good at also helping you make different trade-offs that impact your compliance. In many cases, that may be sustainability. In other cases, it could be other things, right? But that solution consultant is very good about driving that type of conversation. Okay, so those are kind of the core competencies of this great solution consultant. Then the next critical piece of this is what we want to do is apply AI on top of this. And what's really interesting about Tacton is we were using machine learning 25 years ago when we founded the company. So we've been in this business for a very long time. We're kind of glad to see the rest of the industry catch up, quite frankly. But our fundamental belief is, we need to apply AI to all of this. But what's really important here is we don't see AI ever completely replacing the internal expertise that you have built up as a company over time. There's thought leadership and IP that you have in your best people, and we want to preserve that. So we want to codify that internal expertise, and then we're going to amplify it with AI over time. Okay? Then it's not just about doing this through a salesperson, but it's also being able to do it digitally, or really utilizing any type of channel that is most efficient or most desirable for that buyer. So, digitally, through a direct salesperson, through a distributor, a dealer, whatever your channel structure looks like, that experience for the buyer needs to be very consistent, regardless of the way that they're actually interacting with you. And then finally, and we think this is one of the most exciting things that we're working on right now, and that is that if you think about the data that can be amassed by all of these different buyer interactions, we can harness that to make a lot better decisions about, how we build our products, how we manufacture those products, what suppliers we use, how we market to the customers. And what's interesting about this is we can take those analytics and actually use that to feed the AI engine such that this entire system, this entire chief solution consultant, if you will, gets smarter over time. Okay. And so, if I had to describe Tacton on one sheet of paper, this is essentially how I would do it. Okay. Now, clearly, a platform like this can't exist in a vacuum. And so, kind of first and foremost, we know that we're going to continue to need to integrate deeply with all of the systems that make up your manufacturing ecosystem, or what some people refer to as the manufacturing cloud. The terminology we're seeing today is more kind of oriented around this idea of the smart factory, which, as a software as a service provider, we're big believers in the cloud and the smart factory concept. What we are advising our customers, though, is you have to make sure that smart factory is buyer centric. It's focused on the buyer. Quite frankly, we see a lot of smart factory projects that are very internally focused. It's all about internal efficiencies, and those types of things are important, but you can very quickly lose sight of, the buyer in all of this. So if you want to maximize that smart factory investment, there's a lot of time needs to be spent kind of focusing on that buyer and designing around that. Okay. That was a very quick run through of some of the work that we've been doing really all year long, and then how we've kind of put that into practice from a Tacton company perspective. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Mr. Jesper Alfredsson, and he's going to take you through what we've been doing from a product standpoint.
Thank you, Jeff. So what I will cover is we'll talk a little bit about what's happened in 24, a review of that, and highlight some of the key things. We will then move over to the 25 roadmap and the highlights that we have from the 21-5 part, and then also see how that aligns with what Jeff has just talked about. So, but let's start with 24. So we have been sort of busy in 24 in a lot of different areas, and just to give you an overview of some of the things that we've done during the year, and to Jeff's point, these are all examples of work that we've done in cooperation, innovation that we've done in cooperation with you customers, and also listening to the market. So I think that's essential for us, and and the rest of the customer base will also then benefit from all of these enhancements that we've done in the product. So and that's a key way of how we drive innovation, and that's sort of, as Jeff said, an important sort of part of our success so far and our position in Gartner. So very thankful for that great cooperation. An excellent example of that is a new capability that we've added to CPQ, which is services sales. And services sales, we, very excited to say that we just officially launched this capability. And this work was done together with a leading manufacturer, global manufacturer in the food processing and packaging industry. The specific issues they had was that they were sitting on multiple systems. They were really, at the end of the day, sort of focusing on the same thing. I mean, the products and the services that they provide to the customers. And they saw an opportunity to bring this all together in one system with one vendor, and to then also drive efficiency and sort of a more seamless journey across the value chain, both from the buying and from the selling. So and the services, providing the services. So at the end of the day, this really comes down to sort of customer loyalty and getting sort of closer to the customer and understand the full needs of the market. So Tacton has traditionally been very focused on the buy part, and with the services sales, we've extended this so to cover more of the life cycle. So once the product is bought or sold, and also providing the services in an efficient and good way to the customer base. So what this really the clear benefits of this is by not just focusing on products or services, by combining these. So there's excellent ways of sort of increasing the revenue by offering more of actually a solution where it's a combination of the product and the services can also stay more competitive and sort of provide all of the IP and the value that a typical manufacturer has, which leads to high win rates. By managing this in one system, there's also clear benefits and abilities to reduce costs, and by keeping this together and staying closer to the customer, understanding the full chain, it's also clear that the customer loyalty, you can build a deeper relationship with the customer. So I think, and we see this really, and back to Jeff's points, it's a way of providing more and more of a solution in terms of products and services. And also by doing that, getting access to more data about sort of what products the customer wants, but also how they use it and what's working and not using. So it provides excellent insights to the whole chain. So and what is it then that we've done? So at this first step, so you can based on your installed base and all the information about the product, you can bring that into Tacton and manage that, and then provide updates and renewals to services for the product. So that's the first part. The second part is then that you can obviously select what you want to do and configure the services products and There are currently 5 that we support. So preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, consumables, catalog products, and trainings. So making sure that the customer gets what they want and clearly managed. So obviously the aspects of how to price this is in a correct way. So we've actually introduced specific pricing that targets its services. So and making sure then that all the aspects, all the categories that I mentioned are covered, and you can also sort of schedule the services and make sure also when training is done, when maintenance is done, and so on. So all in all, this additional capabilities then makes it possible to cover more of the life cycle, and also the benefit of having everything in one system, which was a key aspect of what our partner customer wanted to achieve. So again, just officially launched. Please reach out to us if you want more information. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's interesting here, so we're going to try to tie each one of these things back to those trends that we just talked about. The service and sales capability is pretty exciting because there are a lot of different kind of use cases, if you will, for this. One is the classic example where we've given you want to be able to package a set of products with a specific set of services and offer that entire thing as a solution. The second big use case for this is you've got an install base of customers, and let's say you want to run a campaign around a specific service or something related to maintenance. It allows you to then develop a very customer specific quote based on their install base. And then in other cases, you may have a division that does nothing but services. And that division can use this, as essentially a standalone configurator, if you will, to configure their services quotes as well. So, if you think about this from a go-to-market agility standpoint, from a differentiation standpoint, it's very valuable. And then also when you think about that buyer, the other thing that we know about buyers is they're looking for more solution-oriented packages, if you will, as opposed to just point products. So it allows you to respond to those changes from a buyer standpoint as well.
Right. And that was sort of wrapping up 24, and now we look into 25, and as Jeff described, so we've done work with analysts, including McKinsey, to understand sort of what's happening in the market, and obviously then we're taking this into account when we look at what to build for 25. So hold on, just making sure that I don't run out of battery. Hold on. All right, so I'm back. Sorry for that. And so if we look at the 25 plans, then I wanted to talk about 4 things. So these are not the only things, obviously, that we're working on. So we're also any given year looking at what kind of technical improvements and enhancements we do in our infrastructure to keep up and make sure that you have a platform that's future-proof. So, but I wanted to highlight these 4 things. So, and to start with, I'm going to go into connect to anything. So this is really about integrations, and Connect to Anything is an integration platform that we see will have a lot of benefits for our customers. So, and because the challenge that we see is that sort of with the sort of poor data quality or loss of data and so on, there's this hidden cost. And research shows that it's about 13 million sort of annually US annually per organization, sort of, so there is a lot of complexity within how to get the setup where CPQ, ERP, CRM, all this system work in harmony. So and this is really what we want to address with Connect to Anything too. So what we've done is that we have partner up with a leading integration platform. So we're the leader, and our partner Workato is also the leader. We wouldn't pick anyone else. Sort of with this partnership, we can then, what we believe, offer sort of additional capabilities and greatly improved integration capabilities. So what is this? So what this will provide is that together with CPQ and with Connect to Anything, sort of suddenly there's a very sort of easy, straightforward, low code, low cost way of connecting to sort of all sorts of different systems. So this includes around 600 sort of integrations out of the box to enterprise applications. And you see some examples on this slide. So with this integration platform then, so the idea is then to obviously be able to get sort of get you sort of up and running sort of quicker, and so time to value much quicker, and not having to run sort of big expensive integration projects. So this also means that in general, less dependent on IT and their time to be spent on this. So again, what it comes with is pre-built connectors, and the way to sort of to manage and work with this and to make, if there are adjustments that needs to be done, sort of it's a no-code, low-code platform, so very straightforward. So it's an integration hub, which means that you can also move away from a point-to-point kind of setup, which all in all also addresses sort of some of these data issues. This platform is secure and compliant, so it ticks all the boxes that are required. When it comes to sort of the management part, we take the responsibility. So we provide this as a one-stop solution to our customers. So once the platform is up and running, we also have responsibility for that. So we're super excited about this and see a lot of sort of great benefits already with some of the customers that we're working on with. So obviously then from a sort of business value point, to repeat, sort of time to value reduced, and the dependence on large projects. With one sort of integration platform and a hub, it means actually sort of fewer, sort of better, easier management of the integrations. We're our counterparts, so there's a single vendor that you need to work with. And all in all, that means that you will get more out of CPQ, of Tacton, but also I think you will get more out of your whole sort of infrastructure by getting this right. So that's Connect to Anything.
Excellent. And so, interestingly, obviously, this has a huge impact on your agility as well. By the way, one of the other kind of motivations behind this was, you may have some type of a middleware platform already in place. And so your intent is to actually use that, which we're completely, fine with, obviously. But what we're also saying is you could use this in a temporary mode. So in other words, like if your IT group is backed up, they aren't going to get to the CPQ integration for 6 months to a year. You could implement one of these Workato, Tacton Workato connectors relatively quickly. Use that until the IT guys are ready to go, and then you can move to your strategic platform after that. But huge impact on your agility, and also by reducing some of the IT burden associated with these integrations. You're turning over people in IT as well, right? So we think it directly impacts brain drain as it relates to the IT group as well. Okay? Back to you,
Good.
Jesper.
Yeah, good stuff. The next area, guided product selection, is very much related to the buyer centricity and providing sort of an experience that's sort of easy to understand, provides the right information, and so on. So it checks a lot of the boxes or the things that Jeff talked about. So so the idea here is really to simplify the buying journey, sort of, and a way to get from sort of the needs of the customer, easy to understand, sort of navigate, and sort of to get to the point where you might want to do additional configuration. So this is sort of multi-channel, so meaning that for the buyer, for example, a dealer partner, or even direct sales, that these capabilities will be available. So so let's dig in a little bit more to the details. So but before that, so the guided part is key here. So and this is something that I believe we're already great at Tacton to provide sort of guided selling and even guided buying. So and this is just leveraging all these capabilities. So, but the idea here is to again to combine these by guide sort of the buyer or the seller into the step where you do the configuration and do that sort of from a needs point of view. So I have a few sort of screenshots here that explain sort of what it's all about. So this first view is probably sort of familiar for you users already of Tacton. So whereby by asking questions that are sort of based on needs and sort of business requirements, sort of a user can then select and in the next step get in to this view where they can then give, where they get information about, in this particular case, sort of forklifts. What are the forklifts that meet my requirements? And which one is a better fit than the other, sort of. So and you get an opportunity to sort of see the product and the different sort of capabilities and how that stacks up to the needs. Once then sort of a product is selected, you will go into sort of the last step where additional configuration and specifics can be done. Sort of. So really, this is about providing a sort of a clear and seamless and easy to understand journey from this is what I need to this is sort of the specifics of the product. So so that's the guided product selection.
So clearly we were addressing that change in the buyer process itself, the customer wanting more of a self-serve type of experience, and we're also giving you the ability. I mean, most of us have product catalogs that are very complex. And so what we're doing is allowing you to mask some of that complexity, but still have a very kind of rich and valuable experience for the buyer as they start to, narrow down on on some of those areas. By the way, you guys probably saw this in the chat. We'll address some of these questions about the connectors here towards the end. They are priced separately. I can tell you that we are, in the process of building the actual connectors today. S4HANA, SAP S4HANA is obviously very high on the list. Salesforce.com is very high on the list. We would also, though, love to talk to you about your specific requirements there as we build these connectors. So, there are various ways that you can get a hold of me. But if I think see like Gary and Sean, if you guys would like to have kind of a separate conversation on that, we'd be more than happy to do that. It'd be great input for us. So, all righty.
Okay, next we move into composable. And this is a term that's being used more and more in the market. I know that Gartner talks about it and so on. So really, I'll talk about what it means for us. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the sort of again omni-channel, and an important aspect of Tacton is that we provide this one source of truth across channels, and I think this is key to address sort of one of the slides that you had, Jeff, where you sort of what is important for the buyer. Sort of it's convenience to get the right information. So then it's important to have one truth. Reliability, so you get the same information in all the steps. And if you move from self-service to a salesperson, then all this information is captured and follows through in the process. So, but really, so the composable aspect is really a sort of a capability to provide a sort of a unique user experience to your users and to your customers. Which might differ a bit, sort of between products and between users. So you might have very experienced users; they need one kind of user experience, but you also have probably sort of if you have end customers that comes to your site or to your portal the first time. So the idea here is to modularize that experience and really providing sort of components of UX. So that you can then place and add sort of to what fits your needs. In addition, this also includes sort of styling and colors and all that, obviously, so that it fits with sort of the needs that you have and your sort of whatever standards you have in design terms. Sort of, it's a low-code, no-code approach. So it should be really easy to sort of take those components, UX components, and add them to where you need them to be. So that pre-built sort of, in addition to pre-built components, there are also sort of updated APIs. So if there is a need for you to have a widget or something that not part of our component library, you will also have the capability to get that in place. And sort of all in all, this should enable you to sort of differentiate and get the experience that you need for your users and customers. That it's sort of not sort of being locked into really anything that a box that we provide or anything. So that's one of the key ideas here, to provide you with the flexibility to provide the experience to your users and customers. And I'm going to give just sort of a quick example of what is this, if it's not clear yet. So we have taken an example here of a fictitious truck company. So you would come into sort of the website, for example, in this particular case. So and when you get to the point where you sort of need to sort of get information about product and start to configure a product or select a product, sort of in this example now we're starting with sort of an empty page, But then you can see there's like a code snippet at the bottom of the page here. So by just sort of adding sort of a few lines of CSS code, you can then design and add, okay, I want visualization to the left, I want configuration to the right, sort of. So it's really about sort of building your user experience and really making it sort of easy and not a big IT product to be able to expose your products on various sort of portals or websites. So so that's so composable is a little more like of a technical capability, but we see a sort of really sort of big value to get this in place.
Yeah. So again, you think about many of you probably have a customer-facing website that is trying to do a lot of different things simultaneously. What this essentially does is it makes it a lot easier to embed Tacton CPQ as part of that kind of broader experience, if you will. So we wanted to make that as easy as we possibly could. And literally, you add that line of CSS code, and it reappears, where it appears on that customer-facing website. So again, very focused on, again, enhancing that customer experience and giving you more flexibility from a technical standpoint to be able to do that.
Right. I believe the last area that I want to cover is analytics and AI. And we see this really as sort of a package, sort of, because both analytics and AI needs the data, obviously. And this data might be structured or it might be unstructured. So, and as Jeff mentioned, sort of, we have 25 years experience in AI. So we have symbolic AI. So already in our sort of configuration engine. So, but by adding then additional sort of predictive and generative sort of AIs, we see that we can further sort of augment and enhance sort of user experience, but also how to get insight from data. So, really sort of what we see is that why we believe this is so interesting for us is that there's unique data in CPQ that is in no other system. So especially when it comes to details about the configured products. So that means that from a system like this, obviously you can have sales dashboards and understand sort of what's selling, what's not selling, how different teams are performing and all of that stuff. So there's some sort of standard stuff, but also with the specifics of configured products. And to Jeff's point, there's also when it comes to sort of what's all the data that will come in if you start to expose to your customers to drive insights from that as well. Sort of how far are customers going in the buying process? What area? What products are sold? What are not sold? And what sort of in the selection process? What's never selected and what's selected often? If the differences in regions and so on. So there's just this massive amount of data that we want to make sure that you can sort of harvest and also drive insights from as well. So, and by having this data and by also adding probably some unstructured data, sort of that's when you can really get the benefits of all the new sort of existing and also sort of the new AI capabilities that comes with sort of come lately. So we're super excited about this effort. This is maybe a little bit earlier compared to the other ones, but we believe that this will be sort of a fantastic addition to the rest of CPQ.
Yeah, and if you think about that, earlier I talked about go-to-market agility and the need to really drive deeper adoption within the channel. and this is just one kind of a use case or example from an analytics standpoint. With a direct sales channel, you've got a little more control over adoption, a little bit, I would say. But if you have an indirect channel, driving adoption is much more difficult. If you think about kind of the analytics that we're able to draw out of Tacton, it's going to give you a level of visibility into the channel and how they're interacting with your quoting engine that you've never had in the past. And so that's just one example of literally hundreds, if you sit and start brainstorming on this stuff, of things that we're going to improve from a visibility standpoint and from a management standpoint going forward. So we're really excited about what's happening here.
Agreed. And I believe that was it.
Excellent. So we've left 2 minutes for questions.
Yeah, I know. We're really, really tight on time. Jeff and Jesper, thank you so much. This was an excellent webinar. Let's try to tackle a couple of these questions quickly. Jeff, we've got a couple for you. We'll start with, how do you see the role of leadership evolving in manufacturing to embrace these digital trends, to better engage with digital buyers and provide them the experiences that they want in today's landscape?
Okay, that's a great question. It's one of those things we could probably spend a week talking about. I would really summarize it into a couple of things. One is, I think what we're seeing is the really innovative leaders are getting much more focused on the buyer, which has been kind of a common theme throughout this entire presentation. And when we say that, what we mean by that is they really understand the buyer journey. So if you are buying from your customer or from your company, what happens literally at every step of the process? And is that something that pleases the buyer? Is it something that discourages the buyer? Does it engage them as opposed to just serving up information? But it's really digging into that buyer journey, trying to map that out, and then getting some real feedback from your buyers about how to do that. So the first leadership thing is you got to get focused on the buyer. The other thing I will say too is that you see a lot of these digital transformation projects, and they are all tremendously valuable. But really prioritizing, the sales organization and the buyer experience as part of that digitalization strategy, I think is critically important. That's where you can drive a huge amount of ROI very quickly if you prioritize correctly and focus on the right things. But it starts with understanding the buyer journey.
That's great. Thanks, Jeff. I realize we're at time. I want to be conscious of time. We had a lot of great questions. Jesper, there was a lot around service sales, connect to anything. So we will make sure to answer all of your questions. As I mentioned before, we are recording this. We will send the on-demand recording to everybody. We will follow up with all questions and kind of share that with the audience. So thank you all for joining. We so appreciate it. Again, if anything else, please reach out to your account executive or anybody that you work with at Tacton. We'll follow up to your answers. And thanks again for joining. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.